MMA, about boxing. You go right way to stay like make good interview.
For sure. Okay, so where are these next few days like? When do you head to Philadelphia, and what are you doing for the final few days of hard training camp?
Sure, I will go to fishing next couple of days. Yes.
Is the hard work done?
No. Just I like to change the focus. Go some days to somewhere. Last night we also in the beach we try to catch shark, but shark it's not hungry last night.
Yeah, I saw you had dinner with, sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, Magomed Abdusalamov. Am I saying it right? Yeah, what was that like?
Yeah, he living here like last more than like 10 years, and I never been in his house. I invite him in my fight always, but first time we go to his house, he stay here with all his family, and they invite us to the khinkal, traditional Dagestan food.
No one has made it past this point, right? You and Anderson Silva, 16 straight wins. No fighter has ever done better.
Who's the number one right now? Anderson Silva or myself? Because I already like not beat, but
you're tied. Yeah. So you both have 16.
16.
So you will be the only person with 17 with this win.
Yeah. I have to.
Yeah.
I never like follow these numbers, but it's like cool, when you have longest win streak in UFC. It sounds good,
Yeah, and I know you did that interview the other day with the Game Set Paddle podcast, and you talked about it's sometimes difficult to keep your motivation right now, and you kind of have to look at things differently. How has that evolved over time? Like, where do you find motivation now?
Man, the champion's life is different, man. Yeah. I don't want to lose this, The champion's life, it's not like many things changed, but it's good to be champion, good when you have 2 belts, and I want to be like champion, because it's hard, it's hard because every time you prepare yourself for the 5 rounds, you're training like hard, but when you become champion, it's something different.
Yeah, he seems to really like respect you and your greatness and everything that you've done, but he also says, he wants to beat you in your own world on the ground, and he's going to bounce your head off the canvas and stop history from happening. What do you make of this?
Bro, I saw his couple interview. Honestly, he looks very bad in this interview. Better for him training more and do less interview, It's look like somebody in the house control him and tell him what to say in the interview, He looked very bad in the interview, honestly.
Yeah. Do you think when fight week comes at the press conference, things like that, is he going to try to get under your skin?
Man, he tried to, in the fight week, he always tried to be like bad guy, but he act like he bad guy.
Welterweight, right? And I know you said the first time like adding on the weight and everything was a challenge. It's been like a year since then. How much more comfortable do you feel for a welterweight fight this time compared to last time?
Yeah, now I feel more comfortable, honestly. That the first camp so hard. I just try to gain weight, do a lot of lifting program, but this camp I stay in the same weight, I'm not like go down. Now I'm like real welterweight, and this camp I think is more easy. But you cannot say this easy, but because we're not lifting much.
We're obviously a couple weeks out from your title defense against Ian Machado Garry at Philly at UFC 330. How has camp been? How's preparation been? What do you make of Ian as an opponent?
Yeah, everything is going very well. We stay in the same gym, like last couple of fights we stay in New Jersey and training in Nick Cotton MMA. It's very nice gym. I have too many my brothers and friends and sparring partner with me. Almost all team is here. We're training together. Habib is here, Javier is here, and we're training every day very hard to be ready.
And obviously, Dagestan and Ireland have a bit of history with Habib and Connor. Obviously, Paul Hughes and Usman over in PFL. You're preparing for another Irishman yourself. What do you make of you as an opponent and kind of carrying on that rivalry between countries?
This is just like a regular opponent, nothing some between country, but still we have 2-0 now. It's gonna be 3-0.
The fundamental question heading into UFC 330 isn't whether Islam Makhachev remains the superior fighter. It's whether his wrestling system actually scales against a fighter with Ian Garry's physical profile. Makhachev has spent 16 consecutive victories solving opponents on the ground by establishing immediate wrestling dominance and controlling center. Garry presents a different structural problem: 5 inches of reach, a rangy frame that naturally stands vertical, and the kind of lateral movement that forces grapplers to extend further than they are comfortable. This isn't about intimidation or narratives. This is about whether Makhachev's wrestling architecture can function against elite-level length. Makhachev made a strategic calculation about moving to welterweight that reveals how he approaches these calibration problems. The first camp was exclusively about mass accumulation, heavy lifting, aggressive weight gain, all designed to enter welterweight with maximum force density. That approach worked against lighter, more compact fighters. For this second camp, Makhachev deliberately shifted strategy. He's maintaining his natural walking weight, which suggests his technical staff already identified that raw mass won't solve Garry's reach disadvantage. Instead, they've prioritized cardio conditioning and refinement of distance management. That change in camp philosophy tells you everything about how Khabib's team views this matchup. It's not a power problem, it's a pressure problem. The wrestling game plan Khabib has constructed centers on one principle: eliminate Garry's ability to build offensive combinations by controlling the pace of engagement. In training camp footage, Islam is repeatedly working clinch transitions from forward pressure entries, specifically sequences that protect against Garry's jab and straight right while creating inward momentum. The tactical emphasis isn't on launching immediately into takedowns. It's on establishing a wrestling framework that forces Garry to spend energy defending position before Islam even shoots. Khabib is micromanaging the entry layer, masking level changes with feint combinations, controlling posture in the collar tie, and extending clinch exchanges into upper body grappling where size and frame matters. This is textbook suffocation wrestling. The goal isn't an explosive takedown. The goal is wearing down the structure of Garry's offense until positions open up naturally. What's notable in Islam's striking preparation is the deliberate focus on bodywork and leg damage. Southpaw stance gives him natural angles to target Garry's body with kicks, and those heavy body shots serve a specific mechanical purpose. They control distance while forcing Garry to drop his hands defensively. That hand positioning then makes him vulnerable to the level changes Islam is drilling. The kicks aren't about knockout power. They're about establishing a tactical framework where Garry can't maintain the high guard position he'll need to defend takedowns effectively. Islam has been working high-velocity kicks off the bag, developing the timing to measure range against length. The goal is creating compound defensive problems, Garry simultaneously worrying about body damage while managing wrestling entries. Garry's stylistic challenge against this approach is more complex than the simple runner narrative suggests. Garry's actual game plan relies on controlling range with his jab and straight punch, using his reach to score first, then retreating into lateral angles where Islam struggles to build momentum. That's not running. That's perimeter movement tied to actual striking sequences. The mechanical problem Islam has to solve is closing distance against someone whose entry geometry is naturally superior. A fighter with 5 inches of reach advantage can begin his combinations further away. His punch extensions reach Islam before Islam can close the gap to fire back. Traditional wrestling solutions cutting off the cage, using forward pressure to funnel into clinches, become more exhausting when the opponent's range allows him to keep circling and resetting. Islam has acknowledged that keeping Garry's pace required conditioning work, which is the honest assessment of the problem. Garry maintains high-volume combinations while constantly repositioning. That output burns gas tanks quickly if the opponent has to chase repeatedly. But Islam isn't planning to play that chase game indefinitely. What his camp is drilling is anticipatory wrestling, reading when Garry's going to reset and throw, then entering on the back end of his combinations when his hands are down and his weight is transitioning. That requires precise timing more than raw pressure. It's wrestling based on strike recognition, not just forward movement. The cardio question cuts both directions, though. Garry's been training extensively with Charles Oliveira, which is the logical assignment for someone trying to defend grappling. Oliveira's guard is elite, but more importantly, his positional retention and scrambling create massive problems for wrestlers trying to pass or advance. The question for Islam becomes whether he can establish enough top control pressure to make Garry's guard work become exhausting. If Garry spends 5 rounds defending guard position on his back, that's also unsustainable. Islam's wrestling doesn't need to be flashy. It needs to be relentless enough that staying on bottom becomes the more expensive option than getting taken down. What separates Makhachev from pure grapplers is his striking threat on the feet, and that's actually the more dangerous element in this fight. Oliveira trained Garry partly because of Garry's submission defense, but also because Islam submits people from top control. That's the real threat, not knockout power, but the position control that leads to submissions. Islam's striking improvements aren't about winning striking exchanges. They're about buying time and creating openings for wrestling without taking unnecessary risk. His head movement and guard placement under pressure mean he can stand with Garry long enough to create takedown opportunities. He's not trying to outbox the longer fighter. He's using boxing defense as a vehicle for wrestling setup. The psychological element Daniel Cormier identified, Makhachev calling Garry a runner specifically to bait him into standing his ground, is actually sound game theory. If Garry feels pressured to prove he doesn't run, he's more likely to stand and exchange rather than consistently use that lateral movement. Islam is deliberately creating a psychological pressure that nudges Garry toward fighting exactly the way Islam's conditioning is built for. It's subtle, but it's exactly the kind of matchup planning that separates good fighters from championship-level operators. Length disadvantages in grappling aren't insurmountable, but they require specific solutions. Khabib's solution appears to be multi-layered. Establish wrestling dominance through clinch control and suffocation rather than single-leg explosiveness. Use striking and body work to control Garry's defensive posture. Wear down the conditioning specifically on the scrambling and positional retention. Create psychological pressure that nudges Garry toward the standing exchanges Islam's drilling for. Execute under the highest stakes and most complete preparation his camp can provide. For Garry, the counter-narrative is equally grounded. His striking output combined with length should prevent Islam from establishing comfortable distance. If he can maintain high-volume jab and straight work, stay sharp on positioning, and avoid getting caught in extended clinch sequences, he creates problems for Islam's game plan. The issue is executing that cleanly for 5 rounds against someone whose pressure increases as the fight goes on. Islam's cardio is also elite. He's not going to fade in the 4th and 5th, which is when distance control becomes harder. The bookmakers have this right. Makhachev is the superior fighter structurally and skill-wise, and his preparation has been specifically calibrated to address Garry's strengths. But Garry has legitimate mechanical tools, his reach, his volume, his movement, that create real defensive challenges. This is a technical chess match disguised as a striking exchange and grappling battle. The fighter who solves the physical puzzle more completely and who executes their prepared game plan with better precision wins this fight. For Makhachev, that means closing distance without absorbing strike damage, establishing clinch control, and wearing Garry down through top pressure. For Garry, it means maintaining output and lateral space while avoiding extended wrestling sequences. The gap between these two levels of execution will determine whether this is competitive or dominant. UFC 330 is being positioned as Islam's toughest welterweight test so far, and that positioning is accurate. Garry isn't an upset candidate because he's suddenly a better fighter than Makhachev. He's a test because his physical tools force Islam to execute his game plan with technical precision rather than just athletic dominance. That's actually the more interesting fight to analyze.